Good afternoon, Tony.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for joining us today. Happy to have you on this video chat. For those of you who don't know Tony Jaros, he is the Senior Vice President at Sirius Decisions. Tony was responsible on all sorts of B2B marketing related research, ranging from demand generation, campaigning, demand creation, and he will tell more about it. And I'm here, Tony, to discuss with you some interesting issues that I think, just my first conclusion based on my last visit at your summit is that many organizations here in the Benelux are a little bit behind in the demand generation planning. But you are actually speaking to a lot of organizations. Some of them are internationally active in different countries, some of them in Europe as well. From all your activities, talking to all these customers and doing research, what comes out as the most or the top challenges marketeers and salespeople are facing today?
Well, I think one of the biggest challenges is that marketing and sales still have, in many organizations, yet to settle on a common language for how they work together. And this is actually one of the things that we talk to organizations about all the time. When it comes to demand creation, you start to think about questions that sound simple but are very complex, like what is the definition of a lead? Sales and marketing often talk two very different languages when it comes to these very core elements. And when you find that they're talking different languages when it comes to answering those questions, it usually doesn't turn out very well. So that lack of a common nomenclature and framework by which sales and marketing work together tends to be a huge challenge in many organizations.
And why is it important, Tony? I mean, it is something that's going on for years, and companies still, generating revenues, and not all according to their expectation. What could be what is the difference with organizations that do have it right?
Well, when we take a look at how organizations measure and how they're able to return in organizations where sales and marketing are tightly aligned, what we found over the years is that an average B2B organization versus a best-in-class B2B organization is only performing at about 20% of what a best-in-class organization is. So you think about a 5-to-1 ratio in terms of results when we measure through what we call the demand waterfall. So there is real return in having sales and marketing share common language, common processes, and a common technological platform.
Interesting. And you just touched your demand waterfall. Maybe you can give us a brief introduction, because I guess that not a lot of people here know about the demand waterfall, but I found it to be extremely interesting.
So the demand waterfall is a construct that we developed actually almost a decade ago and have revised a number of times over the years as we've seen technology in B2B improve as well as process. The waterfall is a shared view of net new demand creation health between marketing and sales that takes into account the activities in a demand creation engine that both marketing is responsible for as well as sales is responsible for, rather than just marketing saying, let's measure what we do, and sales saying, well, let's just measure revenue. We start to look at this as really a shared scenario that tracks the journey of demand from inquiry all the way to close and the subsequent stages that it goes through. So organizations can do two things. Number one is to benchmark themselves, and number two is to diagnose issues that they see in that waterfall when conversion rates don't meet up to industry standards.
Okay. And the first demand waterfall, if I'm not mistaken, was introduced in 2006?
The first one actually came along in 2002. It was long before you even saw marketing automation in the marketplace. So we knew that we were quite a bit ahead of our time at that point because organizations really couldn't execute on what we had drawn up. By 2006, when we revised the waterfall for the first time, that's really when you saw the dawn of what we call modern marketing automation that allowed marketers in the B2B space to be arbiters of not just lead quantity, but lead quality.
Okay. And recently, I mean, at the summit in London, I saw it for the first time. You introduced a new version of the model. Why is that?
Because what we've done over the past 5 to 6 years is watch organizations put that 2006 construct into practice. And just like they have, we've learned a lot about what works and what doesn't in terms of B2B demand creation. So we felt like we needed to make some modifications to that waterfall to make some things in it more explicit and to also call out very explicitly not only the demand that marketing was creating, but the demand that a teleprospecting or telequalification function creates,
yeah, exactly.
well as the demand that sales creates.
Yeah, so it's much more relevant now to many companies. And also I think the separation between the inbound and outbound makes more sense, right?
Very much so, yes. We know that inbound marketing has grown to be an exceptionally powerful way that marketers create demand in the B2B space.
Yeah, and talking about inbound marketing, from your experience, and you talk a lot to organizations that implemented this model, how important is having the content marketing part well done in order to have the whole model successful?
Content is the lifeblood, really, of inbound marketing. If you think about it, there are 3 keys to good inbound marketing. Number 1 is content. You need to put your content into the places that your buyers naturally congregate. Number 2 are pathways that they can take or from those places that they go and congregate and get into your properties. And number 3 is a way then to convert who is unknown into someone who is known so that you can further that conversation with them. So that inbound marketing process begins with content, and in many cases it continues with content because you need to offer a buyer something else to get them to identify themselves to you.
Okay, and we see that also when we spoke about content at the event, you dedicated actually a full presentation to the topic of buyer persona. Why? How is it important?
Well, if you think about how we sell in B2B, we target companies, right? We target companies in specific industries or horizontal slices of companies. But at the end of the day, we sell to groups of individuals. And what we then need to do is we need to make sure that our messaging applies to not only a company, but to the individuals that are going to play roles in that buying process. If we cannot communicate on both of those levels, then we will succeed in one area potentially in drawing someone in, but when you really take a look at how human beings buy, it sells us very short.
Exactly, yeah. Yeah, and you know, looking at the whole model, if you actually think, okay, it's not really like a one thing. It's not like a one campaign or one project is actually changing the whole way marketing and sales operating in organization. So obviously it's very strategic. So when you're looking at marketeers who wants to initiate this change, where do they go to get a buy-in? Is it like the head of marketing, or is it the CMO, or is it the chief revenue officer, the sales, or is it, let's say, the CEO?
Well, I think that if you don't have fundamental buy-in at the marketing leadership level and the sales leadership level, this notion of alignment is not going to work. Certainly if marketing doesn't buy into it, and we think that they absolutely should, you have a marketing leader who's going to be in danger of not lasting very long within that organization. I think the tougher thing in many cases is sales, who doesn't necessarily trust that marketing can help them be able to achieve their revenue goals.
Exactly.
If that sales leader doesn't believe in that, he or she is not going to do the work that's required up front with marketing to put the right processes in place, and that will not manage to and or measure them over time to make sure that the types of things that we talk about are actually enforced.
Okay, so basically what you're saying is that firstly, marketing should believe in this concept, believe that they need to actually generate more value to the organization. And then basically sales should also get into this picture, which is a little bit more challenging in a lot of organizations. So would be interesting to hear what is your best practice when you talk to a lot of organizations or marketing pioneers who actually started this initiative. What are some of the best ways that they connected to sales and got their buy-in for that?
You have to talk to sales or communicate to sales in the language that they understand and what they care about. And sales obviously cares about making their number efficiently, and being able to scale that operation over time. So you start to think about the ways that marketing can help do that. Marketing can produce higher numbers of high-quality leads that if they're able to do that, that reduces the amount of time that salespeople have to go out and prospect, which is a very low-yield activity. If marketing can enable sales to be able to take good leads and get them to opportunity and then to close with tools and content and other resources, that means a salesperson can manage more opportunities at once and have a better opportunity to close rate. These are all things that sales leaders and sales people care about. If marketing tries to put this in the, well, you know what, do this because it's going to help me as a marketing leader justify my budget, forget it. You need to talk in the language that sales cares about.
Exactly. It's also the part that you mentioned in your presentation. I think that the opportunity cost of leads sales go and generate its own leads is far more than actually the opportunity cost of marketing. And to wrap up this conversation, Tony, you know, as I mentioned, you know, a lot of marketeers here are just on the verge of embarking on this road of demand generation. Could you, I mean, I know it's difficult, but could you maybe summarize 3 best tips that you can give them how to be successful on this road?
Well, I think number 1 is that I think that the framework in terms of nomenclature is very, very important. To start to put onto the table with sales leadership potentially a set of terminology that can be agreed to. And the waterfall is a great way to be able to start that conversation, to talk about what does a lead mean, what does an opportunity mean, what is marketing's responsibility within that waterfall, etc. So in nomenclature, there's great power. Number 2, I think, is to test and to pilot. You are not going to be able to change an organization overnight. What you want to be able to do is, through piloting, is get permission through early success to continue with your initiative. And number 3, I think, is to start to think about the fundamentals, really, of going back of who you target and what you sell, and make sure that there is key agreement with sales around those questions. And I know that sounds very, very obvious, but you'd be surprised in many organizations when I ask those questions, what do you sell and who do you target? I get 2 different answers from marketing leadership and sales leadership. And what that tells me is you can put as much technology into place, as much process in place as you want. When there's fundamental misalignment around those questions, it's not going to work.
Exactly. Well, with this note, thanks, Tony, very much for your time. And I know that you are not able to make it to the forum, but Meta, your colleague, will be able to make, and you will have a keynote during the B2B marketing forum. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. And thanks a lot. And just for people, marketeers who would like to see more information, go to your website.
www.siriusdecisions.com, and that's SIRIUS decisions.com.
Okay, great. Tony, thanks very much.
Thank you.